Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. Almost done with Calamity Conquest. Second to last fight, the Maelstrom of Ruin versus Chabby. So, same missions as always, 4 physical, 4 magic, 1 free-to-play character. Not a big deal. Chabby itself, 5.1 million HP, so kind of in the middle between the Golem and Orc, which had, 2-ish to 9 and 8 million versus Hinata and the Sky Dragon. So we've seen kind of a whole run of different HP levels. Very high defense, fairly high attack, lots of pierce resistance, nerfs greens, and then defense guard lowers us a little bit, and then can heal a lot if you get it down. So the idea is just nuke it down, just like every other boss here. So we can use almost everything. We can use blues, we can use oranges, we could use crit and synergy, but it wants us to shy away from pierce and green orbs. So let's build a team that is wind focused that can do that. Alright, we're going to go in with this Fount of Wisdom team. So we are getting extra damage against water. We do have Hinata, who, with her skill fusion, can do fairly reasonable amounts of damage. This Rimuru is double skill fused. Albus is not. Free to play Fount of Wisdom Gobta, I could not tell you the last time I actually put him on a team, in all seriousness. And then we are going to bring one magic unit, and that is Blanc, because we don't have a character who can swap any alts. And the weakness strike that we can get from her will be, useful on top of that. Albus is Pierce, though, and I am wondering if this is just a 50% permanent, or if he stacks that, and it's 100% by the end of the fight. So we'll have to see. Gobta is going to give us a little bit of extra juice, though, so wind attack, pierce power, and then the blue orb skill point increase, which should come in fairly useful. So let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so we're going a little bit faster here because this is a stacking team. It takes forever. Not a great starting hand, but we're just going to send these oranges and pray that next turn we can get just some good natural blues, and it does work out for us. So Hinata can change that. If Rimuru is skill fused, he could change that as well. Rimuru normally converts 2 oranges to blues, but skill fused he could change any 2 orbs, so it just gives him a bit more versatility. Albus, if she's skill fused, would change any green orbs, so if you have like an entire hand of greens, then they would all become blues, and that's cool and everything, but I have not skill fused her yet, because I just don't use her enough to warrant skill fusing her. The niche kind of scenarios where I would use her, I do, and she works fine anyways. So we've got a lot of orb changing on this team. Gobta, does serve a purpose, yes, technically, in being a free-to-play character, so you get that mission done. He's also physical, which we need 4, and we have 4. So if you don't have Blanc, you could use somebody else. It doesn't matter. Her buff, her weakness strike buff, is impactful. The synergy resistance down, not so much, because we're not a synergy-focused team. But at least she's doing a couple things. She's alt-swapping, so there you go. The Hinata orb is now blue. There's the convert. We actually didn't need to use 2 converts there. I just misclicked, but it is what it is. We're not going to really hurt from that. But we do need to get an EX alt for at least Hinata, and if you can get an alt for Albus or Blanc, because they're both on Fount of Wisdom, that would just enhance your damage capabilities. So if your Hinata isn't level 120 and EX unbound and all that, then you might lack a little bit of damage. So you might need a follow-up attack to really send us into the W. But let's alt swap again. We are going to go all the way until turn 8 because we need to get there, because Diablo is the first EX stacking protector, and he is woefully underpowered. He stacks more slowly than other characters because he's only doing 30 points a stack, and his alt resistance buff is debuff is powerful, but not as strong as what some of the other protectors nowadays are doing, because he's over 2 years old at this point. He came out in February of 2023, or March of 2023, essentially, and it's now April of 2025. So definitely showing his age. All these characters, except Blanc, came out in that same realm. So they are underpowered, even with skill fusions. Like, Rimuru's skill fusion is not super duper impressive. I did his showcase last month, and it doesn't really add much value to him. It's still a decently strong buff. It's just not as strong as you would like it to be, looking at the numbers that it's got on its skill. But this is turn 7. Let's send one more hand. We are capped out at 390 points. We have 2 more stacks of Diablos. That's another 30% ult resistance down that we could do. And we have just enough points to use everything here. So let's use the Blanc Weakness Strike. We'll bring Gobta in to give us the Wind Attack and the Pierce Power. Boom. And then we'll bring Rimuru in and use all 3 of the other buffs. He's only got 50% Pierce Resistance, so he does not stack anything higher than that, at least up to turn 8. So we can eliminate that with Albus, because she's doing 50% Pierce Resistance down, so it's kind of washing each other out. So we are just going to have base Pierce plus the 15% Pierce power that Gobta's giving. And so we're going to watch these ults, because, you know, when's the last time you really get to watch them? Especially the Albus one. But Albus does 1,000,000. Okay, a chunk of change right there. So there's your extra damage in case your Hinata isn't quite strong enough to kill. Our Hinata, though, is strong enough to kill, because she does 5.6, and max HP Chabby has like 5.1 or something. So she can definitely do it with this setup, with the unbound status, but if she wasn't unbound and if she wasn't 120, you might have been just a bit shy, and that Albus ult would have definitely helped you cover it. Alright, the next team is going to be a modified Frieren team with Exalted Champions Milim. So I'll try Exalted Champions just for some science to see how we can get around that green nerf. I think it should be fine. But Frieren team, people probably have it, so we're just going to slap her on and still use it. We are using the Raphael, though. If you don't have Raphael, you could use the Shinsha from Wielder of Magic for the protection gauge, or just use some other triple orb stealer and just do it that way. I don't think with this team you're going to need to go to 8 turns. I think you can just do just fine. So let's go ahead and just jump in then. Alright, so we've got 3 Frieren orbs. That's fine. So we'll bring Raphael in. We'll yoink those other 3, give us some protection gauge on these oranges, plus a blue, plus a green. This will get us probably fairly close to an EX ult for Milim very, very quickly. Yeah, very close. But more importantly, it gives us access to Himmel, so we can convert next turn. And for Milim, a lot of her buffs are already being covered with this specific team build, right? We're already getting the ult buff from Frieren, actually more, because Milim does 100 and Frieren does 120. And then the weakness strike we're going to technically get from Raphael, which it already starts at 100, and every time you ult with Raphael it goes up. So we can only make Milim be stronger. So her buff, while cheap, is covered, so we don't need to use that. We could use the gimmick skill if we really, really wanted to, but I don't really think that's necessary. But I do want the full hand of orange, so let's go ahead and yoink some more orbs. Boom. Cool. And then that gives us Himmel, so we could change those other 3 orbs that remain into oranges. And then we can start sending ults with Raphael to get the extra weakness strike, which will be pretty good. Replacements, obviously I said that you could swap out Raphael for any triple orb changer, or triple orb stealer, or you could do Shinsha to get the extra protection gauge. That would also work just fine. That works. So let's do this. And then we don't have an alt swapping character. So we do have to bring you in for a little bit. So let's take you out. We've got a whole butt ton of Milim orbs. Let's go ahead and just use this. Gets us very close. This should actually get us a double Himmel next turn. But we can get the EX ult, and then we can really just send her away. And we can just go to turn like 6 or something when we have enough points to really nuke. We can probably actually... Yeah, so let's use the synergy power buff early. And the magic buff early. Actually, we have points for that. We don't really need to do much right here. Milim can go away for Raphael again. And we can take Violet out for Frieren. And that is enough, so let's do the magic state. So we'll nuke on turn 7, actually, is what we're going to do, because that's when the magic state will kick in, and we'll get the extra resistances down, and that will help us just do a little bit more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. Send the ult, more weakness strike, and I'm fairly certain Milim can do 8 million damage here. I don't know how much she would do on her own Exalted Champions team, though. That's kind of the kicker. Oh, he healed up, so yeah, we're going to have to pretty much full power nuke. Okay, well, I mean, that's fine. So let's steal. We don't need to use any of the other skills right now. We've already used the 2 that Milim wants to hold on to. The magic buff and the synergy power. So at this point, we're chilling for another 2 turns. 15k, natural synergy. Pierce resistance, nothing to do with this team. We are not a pierce-focused team, so don't need to worry about that. Chabby is weaker to physical allies, but also still doesn't really matter all that much. Okay, Fern, you're gonna probably have to leave so you don't accidentally die here. Alright, getting a lot of Raphael orbs, that's good for us, so let's do that. Let's take Fern out for Violet just so she can save some HP. Maybe in your case where your gear isn't as good or your dupes aren't as high, your units are a bit squishier, you would have to start trading units out a bit earlier to negate some of their damage taken. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this upcoming turn 7 should be the nuke turn because the defense is leaving, the guard is leaving. Okay, heal back up to full pretty much, so we are looking good. The element resistance kicks in. Frieren has technically extra attack, but it doesn't really matter. But more importantly, we have the points necessary to do what we want to do. So let's bring Milim in for Violet since we've already used her buff. Don't need to worry about that. Let's use the Frieren buff, so 120% ult damage plus guaranteed synergy. And then we'll take her out for Fern. And then we'll use the other 2 buffs. So the synergy power, the EX ult damage up and the ult resistance down. And then the attack and 130% weakness strike. And we're going to use the gimmick skill on the off chance that Milim doesn't actually kill here. I think she should do it, especially with another stack of Himmel. But let's find out for sure. We'll send Raphael just to get some... Actually, I don't think it's actually going to work with a Milim, but it is what it is. Raphael, 204k, and then Milim with her single target. Can you do 8-ish million damage here? Or do we have to change up the DPS even more? I think that Fern could do 8 million damage type neutral with this team setup, so I don't think Milim should actually have a problem. Okay, yeah, 13 million. There we go. So very, very doable. If you don't have Raphael, it's probably the biggest kicker. There are other units you can use. Obviously, we didn't need to do 13 million damage, so you can sacrifice some stacks. You could sacrifice Raphael's buff for maybe a slightly inferior buff to help you with protection gauge, or to help you with just getting orbs in general. So that's certainly an option. Let me see what the Exalted Champions team can do. I might just do like the nuke clip, and then that'll probably be the end of the video. Okay, so here we are. We are using the Exalted Champions team. We've got Veldora, Rimuru, Guy, Milim, and then we've brought Violet again for that big-time magic buff. If you want to bring Awakened Isis, or if you want to bring like Kyokyo or something, like you can. Kyokyo being the least good option because half of his buff is already being covered by Milim because of the weakness strike. But we've stored up the synergy power buff and the magic buff. We're on turn 5. This is the last turn that Velzard is super duper good because then we don't get points anymore. But we do have enough to use the attack buff, the personal buff, and then the gimmick skill just in case. And Chabby, he doesn't have 10 million HP. He's got 5-ish million, so we don't need to do earth-shattering amounts of damage. We need to do decent damage here. And Milim can do decent damage when she's supported correctly. So we'll send Guy first to increase our power even further. He does 749k, but lowers defense. And then Milim does 4.7 million damage. So we are just over that cover because of the Guy ult. We wouldn't have killed if Milim, or if we didn't have the Guy ult and it was just Milim by herself. But EC team can definitely do it. You know, keep in mind that my units have good gear and stuff, so you might have to play around with your team builds if you have to run the Exalted Champions team, but it can get the job done. But let me know in the comments what other teams you have found besides Reckoning that can take out this stage. But that's it for me. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.